It's your girl Nancy Red, and this is season 3 of Mompreneurs, where every week we celebrate beautiful Black entrepreneurs who are simultaneously amazing business moguls and awesome moms, listening to their life stories and inspiring advice. Now, my next guest has been dealing with how the pandemic affects Black women, not just for the past couple of years, but for over a decade. And I'm not talking about the coronavirus pandemic, but the pandemic of uterine fibroids, which affects the vast majority of women, but especially Black women. Coach Gessie Thompson is the founder of the Detox Now, and she's here to share her story and how she's used her pain to help hundreds of women avoid medical mistakes and figure out their fibroids. Coach Gessie, I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. So excited about this conversation.
Well, we've known each other for a decade. You used to be a guest on my show on HuffPost Live, and it was kind of the first time I'd ever even heard of fibroids. A lot of people were in this boat. Like 10 years ago, this wasn't a conversation we were having.
Yeah, the saddest thing about it is that it has been a prevalent, large-scale health issue for, as long as we know it. But the issue is that nobody was talking about it. And I didn't learn about it until, Essence published a profile of my fertility journey and it went viral. And it was like, whoa, hold on a second. This isn't just my personal health. There are like literally millions of women around the world dealing with this. And it just awakened me to the fact that so many of us are dealing with it in silence and in silos.
And that was 10 years ago, exactly this year, 2014. I remember it
That's
because
right.
I was just like, I was reading my little Essence magazine. I was like, oh, I must have her on my show. And okay, now, before we get into your business, I have to laugh because you're in my phone as Gessie, fibroids coach, and amazing bonnet mom. Like this literally, because you know how like there's so many people in your life at this point, you have to remember when someone's calling, it's like, do I
Yes,
pick this up? I'll pick this one up. Like,
absolutely.
but before we get into your business, let's talk a little bit about your amazing miracle baby,
Mhm.
Nia. And I have to let y'all know, she is the adorable voice behind the viral Disney Junior Super Bonnet song. You'd Super Bonnet!
Yeah.
Ah! And now she's enjoying a run on Broadway
Mhm.
as young Nala. I mean, come on, she's in The Lion King. How old is she?
She's 12 and her
Oh my
story is
goodness.
incredible.
Her story is incredible, and what I want to focus on today is the fact that she herself has an incredible story as a talent, a 12-year-old icon, but she almost didn't get here.
Yeah, at 30 years old, I was 4 years into marriage, and husband and I were like, you know what? This is now time to expand our family. We've got the marriage thing down, and we decided to start to actively work to conceive. And 6 months in, we're not getting anywhere. So, I'm a planner. I'm not one of those people who's just going to wait around. I went to the GYN, which I recommend. You don't wait to a year. The technical definition of infertility is not being able to conceive for a year, but I say go 6 months, go active, even proactive before you start planning. Anyway, so we went and I found out that I had uterine fibroids. I had like, what? I said, what are these? Flooded with questions.
Because it sounds like you got cancer, or it
Yeah,
sounds like you don't
that's
know
what I'm
what's
saying.
going on.
So
What
I'm
do you mean
like,
you have
what do you
uterine?
mean? Tumors?
Because what is just explaining really quick? What is it? It's a big old lump in your uterus.
So they're actually smooth muscle tumors. They're made of muscle like your uterus is made of, but they're tumors that occur in and around the uterus. That means in the wall, outside the uterus, inside the uterine lining. And they cause, depending on where they are, it's about location, will determine the kind of symptoms you can experience. Everything from heavy bleeding to extremely painful periods to pain during intercourse to anemia that's from the heavy bleeding that's actually life threatening. And even things like, sciatic pain, depending on where it's pressing, where it's pain caused by the nerve depression down your leg. And for me, it actually caused infertility, which is another one of those symptoms. So I had no idea, and I wouldn't have found out until I was trying to conceive because I didn't have other symptoms at that time, right? And at that point, again, another key thing is that 99.9% of the time they are benign. There is something called cancerous, uterine tumors. They're called leiomyoma sarcomas, but these are called leiomyomas technically that's the medical definition, medical word, but fibroids are largely benign, right? So, but the very first thing you hear tumors, Nancy, you know what that means. You're thinking, is it cancer? Am I going to live? Am I going to be able to have babies? Am I, how is this going to affect my health? And unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot of information out there. So I found myself in a whole vacuum, feeling like I was all alone. Thank God for my family, but in terms of support outside, knowing what you're dealing with and having medical support in terms of expertise to help guide you in the decision making process, there was a huge dearth of information.
So you're kind of just there. You're married. You want to have a kid.
Hmm.
You're in the doctor's office. They say you have fibroids,
Hmm.
and you just have to go with what they tell you, which
Right. Well,
was
at that point, I start to research, try to research. Like I said, not a lot of info out there. Like, okay, what do I have to do? So everything is saying you have to have surgery. And then I was like, well, can I do something that doesn't have to cut me open? Is there, and at that point, minimally invasive surgery where they can go in through laparoscope, which is robots through laser. It was very early on. So the only thing surgeons felt comfortable with was cutting you open. And I had that precipitated what was my 14-year battle with fibroids and 10 years with infertility caused by those fibroids, which required 5 IVF cycles. Okay. Because at that point, I had scarring all over my fallopian tubes from the surgeries. So I had 5 additional surgeries. So I had 5 fibroid surgeries and 5 surgeries because of complications from the fibroid surgeries. These are all abdominal surgeries. Okay. Grueling, grueling, grueling recoveries. And my heart even stopped on the delivery table. Not to mention, I had a miscarriage in between that. Right. And IVF, I said that quickly, but in vitro fertilization is very expensive. We're
I mean,
talking
that's
about
an
there was
understatement.
barely any coverage for it. And in fact, we didn't have coverage for it. You're talking about $30,000 out of pocket for each cycle, right? Um, but we went through a lot, and at 21 weeks, Nancy, the doctor said to me, you might want to consider terminating this pregnancy because now the fibroids that you just had an operation for, because that's the thing with fibroids, they can come back. They are frequently up to within 5 to 10 years, up to 60% of the chance of probability they come back. I had had a surgery about a year before, and now in pregnancy, the fibroids were now growing and taking away the blood supply that my baby growing in my womb needed. So the doctor said, this is going to become a hostile environment for you and your baby. So you might want to consider terminating this pregnancy. That had taken us 10 years to achieve at this point, right? And I remember that moment in the office, Nancy, and I was like, you know what? I'm not giving up on this baby. I am a woman of faith. I believe in miracles. And, thank God, because even though things got worse, we did deliver a healthy baby at 2.5 pounds, in spite of my heart stopping on the table, which was because of complications from the previous surgeries. She was 2.5 pounds, only 14 inches, tiny. She spent a month in the NICU. And the crazy thing was that nurses in the NICU, I remember one night, like vividly, and I talked about her recently. This woman, this nurse said to me, I don't know who this little girl is going to grow up to be, but I hope I'm around to see how she changes the world because this one is special. And Nancy, I'm like, my recovery was terrible because I had to have additional surgery because of everything in order to get to Nia. They had to cut open certain parts with my small intestines. And
Because of the fibroid.
yes, because so
Because so the fibroid got them because they're usually like a C-section is just to get in there, you pull it out.
right,
But you had a roadblock.
right. So I didn't just have fibroids that were roadblock. Remember, I had 5 fibroid surgeries. So on top of that, I had double roadblocks,
Scar tissue.
scar tissue from all the other fibroid surgeries. And in between, I didn't talk about this, but every other fibroid surgery I had, they had to cut out several inches and feet of my small intestine. So they were trying to not rip and tear, but because of how long it took them to get, that's why my heart stopped. But they finally just had to cut through because at that point they're like, we got to get this baby. My obstetrician said, he said, I'll never forget that day. I was like, get that baby out of here right now. We
Oh
got
my
to get the
God.
mama. We got to save the mama, And, but we both made it. Thank God.
And your mission in life right now is to prevent
Yeah.
this with preventative measures,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like know what is happening
Yes.
before it gets to this point because
Absolutely.
you didn't know what a fibroid was
Mm-mm,
until it was when I say too late,
mm-mm.
it was not an ideal time.
And I didn't have the information about what I could have done then. Like there's so many things I could have done then now that I know of. There's prevention before. There's also things that you can do in terms of lifestyle changes to help your body to help shrink the fibroids. There's minimally invasive surgical options if you want to do surgery. There's just so many things that if we become equipped and empowered, that we have choices and options that can support us because it created a long-term chronic condition for me. I have over the years, you're born with 20 to 25 feet of small intestine, Nancy. Okay. I have less than 3 feet because of how much they had to take out from all of the surgeries. Now, your gut, I'm sure you've heard that your gut is your second brain. Your gut is literally connected to what they call your true health. Okay. The health of your gut is directly connected to your absorption of any nutrients, right? As well as your immune system because of and your brain health actually because of so many neurotransmitters connected to your brain, right? So when you talk about what your body needs 20 to 25 feet to do, mine has less than 3. So I literally have to live. I said I'm going to do this image one on post soon, where it just shows you all the conditions I manage, and you have no idea because of the long term health issues that were created by things I didn't understand I was going through, and I didn't know what I could. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? But now
Right.
you don't
Well,
have to remain ignorant.
well, right, and that's what's so interesting. I laugh because so much of my mentorship and so many reasons I do things like this podcast and write the books I write is because I feel like I was in some vacuum of information. Many of us feel
Right,
that way.
right.
But the way to heal from that is to provide it to the next generation,
That's
right?
right.
And so we've got Nia, your miracle
And
baby,
I
who's
have to
doing
say,
incredible things.
Nia is officially the co-founder of the detoxnow.com and
Oh,
all the work I
okay.
do. She is the co-founder because she says, Mommy, you wouldn't be doing any of this without me. She said,
Well, that's
she
what I
says,
wanted to talk
I'm
about. So
your
you've got Nia.
co-CEO.
She's your new co-founder, which is hilarious from the womb. You know that what like that's really cute, and she is just delightful, y'all. You have no idea. And so from there, you've got this baby, you've got this preemie baby.
Hmm.
You're healing. You're going through all this chaos.
Yes.
At what point did you decide to have your second baby, which is your business, the
Yes.
Detox
Yes.
Now?
So I'm at this point, I went to school for music business, right? And I ended up I was a talent manager when all of this was happening. And I was going through.
Oh, excuse me. So actually, what's really funny is this is such an interesting personal story. I forgot to ask the question I usually ask, which is which came first, motherhood or entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
And it seems that you've been hustling all along.
Yeah, I was an entrepreneur before I became a mom. I mean, I went to school. And it's crazy because many people don't work in their field that they went to school for. My major was music business. And I came out of school working in at a inspirational record label. Then I went into talent management for this talent, and I was going through a health crisis, right, on red carpets, going to award shows, having to be rushed to the hospital because I am hemorrhaging from the fibroids, right? And after through all of this, I'm going through my motherhood journey at the same time. Trying now, remember, because I found out about fibroids when I was trying to have a baby, and here I am navigating this crisis. And after I had Nia, I was like, well, wow, I thought this was just my personal hell. But I was like at a lunch with my client, my talent client at the time, who was a speaker, and at an Essence lunch with editors because she was a writer for Essence at that time. And of course, I had just had a miracle baby. So I was just talking about my miracle baby. They're like, hold on a second, this sounds like this could be a story for that would connect with our readers. Would you mind sharing your story? And I was like, sure. I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. They'll be inspired. That's cool. But I'm not knowing how many women are affected by this, Nancy, right? I'm still in the dark because remember, I went through this not being connected to support groups or having a coach Gessie in my life, right? And the story comes out and it goes viral. It was my fertility journey. And I was like, hold on a second. Why is my story trending like Lupito Nyong'o signing with Lancome? What do they who do they think I am? Because I'm like, I'm not a celebrity, right? But it was telling what was the comments were telling. Women were writing like their stories. Oh my God, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your story has given me hope. I am 3 myomectomies in. I am 2 IVF cycles in. I have been trying to have a baby. Oh my, like it was not, your general like and comment, like, oh, that's cool. Congrats. No, it was tomes. They were sending me DMs and messages. And, I was like, whoa, what's going on? And then I was like, well, I guess I need to maybe pull these stories together because now people tell me about their miracle baby stories. And then I released my first book, Hope Beyond Fibroids, at Essence Fest in 2015. They invited me to come, and I was like, this is kind of really crazy because I'm used to not being the talent. I'm used to being behind the talent. And it feels
But you knew actually the important part here is you knew how to make this make
right.
sense. Because yeah, no, so one of the things that I think is very important is your time is valuable.
Yep.
Your advice is very important.
Yep.
It takes a lot to put something like this together.
Mhm.
And there's an emotional balance between your story and your
That's
bills.
right. That's right. That's right. And I have to say, Nancy, at first, I didn't even see like how this was going to I thought this was like something on the side. Like, I'm okay. I didn't see how this was going to
I
become
got a book.
like
I'm at
my
Essence
work.
Fest.
Right. Here I am. I said, well, this is kind of major. I'm releasing my book at Essence Fest, right? But as I know, book sales are like, a self-published book. It's like that's not really where you're going to make your money, right? It was really
Yeah.
about having a program, having a platform. And I didn't know where this was coming from, right? But I just knew I said, I live by this, which is follow the breadcrumbs, which is, you know what? The door is open. If it's a door that's connected to your passion, your purpose in your heart, and you feel it's right for you, walk through it, right? And I just kept saying yes. I was like, God, I'm trusting you. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how this connects, but I'm just gonna say yes. Here I am. I was afraid to speak in front of people as a speaker. I was like, and I was like, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna do it. And little by little, I started to the breadcrumbs. I said, follow the breadcrumbs. I started to see an opportunity to support women with not just the emotional support, but then as a coach to support them on their journey with creating the right health plan for their journey. Because I had been trained as a life coach. I just wasn't focusing in health. I had gone through coaching school and all that, right? But I didn't know, okay, wait a minute. Now I saw these women don't know what to do and how they need the support on their health journey. And then I started to do the whole holistic thing, learn about the impact of nutrition, the stuff I had no idea, like at all. I was the woman who ate oxtails like every day, M&Ms every day of my pregnancy, chicken,
Okay, step one,
chicken
welcome to
tikka
all of
masala.
us. Living our best life. I mean, and it's so hard because you grew up on this and no one told you anything. I mean, it's like a big old
Mhm.
life change. You have no
Absolutely.
choice.
But I
And so, interestingly enough, starting your business was also restarting your life.
absolutely.
Ironically, the research you're doing is research that's helping you, which fueled you
Yep.
to do the real job because this is stuff that you need to
Yes.
live.
Yes. I had no idea, Nancy, right? So what I kept saying is, you know what? At this point, I need to go through a transformation myself. I started to seek out, I said, you know what? The traditional medical world has failed me. Like surgery to surgery to surgery to surgery. And I'm still in the same boat, right? Here I am, even after I had a hysterectomy, I was in full blown menopause at 44 years old. I said, terrible symptoms. I was like, I can't live like this. And I just started to, you've heard the saying when the student is ready to teach your peers. So I said, okay, well, let me look at this holistic thing because I was like, I don't believe in herbs and none of that. Like, that is not, But then I was like, all these surgeries and this medicine is not helping me. Like, I need to find some other solutions to see what's in my power. And then that's when I started to even one of my partners now, that's when I started to see the work around herbalism and specifically around nutrition and how these lifestyle changes and stress management right? And how different modalities in terms of what they call lifestyle medicines could literally change the tide, because 90% of the conditions that we deal with are lifestyle born. Only less than 5% of them are genetically determined. Okay. And even when they are genetically determined, lifestyle changes can support those changes, can actually improve outcomes. So at that point, I started to say, well, I need help first. I don't know about helping anybody else. Let me see if this will help me. And I started to implement those lifestyle changes myself. And when I started seeing they made a huge difference, I knew all these women who were struggling because they had been telling me their stories. I was like, let's see if this works for you. Let's do this. And I partnered with some herbalists to create our own program. And next thing I knew, here I was helping women with real testimonies now, Nancy, like having Miracle Baby, a woman. I just spoke with her this morning, Danielle, who texted me. She was unable to conceive for 12 years. She did our program. And within a month and a half, she conceived. She and her husband did it together. They did our water fast to start to reset their bodies. They conceived their first child, who is Monet is her name. And she had a second miracle baby. I'm like, I literally was just talking to her on text this morning. I'm like, it's amazing because I know what it was like struggling with fertility for 10 years. I remember every Mother's Day, every holiday being in tears because we had had a miscarriage or we were still having failed IVF cycles or, every road on that. And I was like,
And even if you're not trying to have a baby,
mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things too is you just living with these things in you. Some of these fibers are really big, and sometimes people don't even know they're carrying them around because you're not going to the OBGYN or they don't do the abdominal scan. There's just a lot going
No,
on.
it's
And especially with Black women, because what's the percentage of Black women who
up to
have fibroids?
90% of Black women by age 50. And let me just
Mm,
clarify one thing. They can be huge and you can have no symptoms, but your quality of life is terribly impacted because everywhere you turn around, somebody's saying you're pregnant. But I have a client right now who literally she was carrying looked like twins. Okay. We were able to get her with the right surgeon, our physician partner, who the only person I recommend to do these surgeries in Chicago. And now she's working on prevention, right? Then you could have people who have tiny fibroids because if they're inside a certain place, they can cause such hemorrhaging that your life is debilitated, right? So size and location are the two determining factors. And really
I was
the quality of life can be severely impacted. So like my first time, I only had infertility as my symptom. Second time, I remember they came back, I had them 5 times. They came back over and over. Second time, I couldn't even walk. I was in so much pain. I had several bleeding where I was hemorrhaging. So you can have terrible symptoms. And I think something that's critical is that to help women find them early is number one, help prevent them by educating yourself around the fact that you should not have a heavy period. If you have a heavy or painful period, that's your body telling you that there's hormonal imbalance present. Something is wrong, and we need to look at it now so that it doesn't become, or so that you can find that you are dealing with that and can be more proactive about the things that you can do, the lifestyle changes you can have, and maybe the other options you may want to explore.
And so when you're looking at this, there's so much I want to talk about, but
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
do want to talk about the aspect. It's very important that you're not issuing medical treatment.
No.
You're literally working with medical doctors
Mm-hmm.
who care for you. In your case, you have found a Black male
Mm-hmm.
surgeon
Yes, absolutely.
who you trust.
Out.
Talk about the importance when we're talking about the work that you do and the suggestions that you make,
Mm-hmm.
finding people that you are working with as a business partner that you can trust and are trustworthy, not bringing you down, not offering poor advice or poor medical care.
That's
A
critical.
team is key
Team is key,
because
Nancy.
you're messing with people's health.
That girl, let me tell you something. So for me, it is so vital. First of all, there's the integrity factor because skill, you can have great skill, but if your integrity is in the trash, we're not, I don't care because it's going to affect your work, period. Right. So someone who does what they say they're going to do, who you watch and you see that the consistency is there, and then the skill level. So there are different ways that you engage in developing trust and seeing if someone is trustworthy. And as a business, you need to see that there are people who are doing what they say, right? That there's the competency, that there's the consistency. They're actions, their results in terms of the people who they've worked with. When we're talking about a physician, it's okay, let me see what the actual patients are saying. Let me see what the results are. I have clients personally who I've specifically recommended, and I watched for a while. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, I've talked for you for a while. I've spoken to patients who you've actually taken care of. And then not just the skill level, but then also the service with which and the support that you give, right? Because for me, if I'm going to partner with anyone, I want to make sure that it feels like an extension of my heart for the people, right? So that they're going to be steered in the right way. Because you're right, I'm not their physician, but I am their support system to helping them find the right people and to make the right decisions for themselves, whether it's, you know, herbal supplements for their plan in terms of prevention. That's the one thing. I partnered with one of our physician partners, Dr. Pierre Johnson out of Chicago. And with him, it was okay. You know what? He says, my clients are always asking me, my patients are always asking me what they can do to support their bodies with prevention. We know that scientifically backed their herbs and nutrition plans that will help their bodies, because the body does the healing, right? You're not doing it, your body does it, but you have to support your body with doing that. And there are scientifically backed protocols that will help that. That is what we put together. That is what we support them with. And they have to turn around and make sure that their doctors feel comfortable with it, right? For their specific case, because everybody's case is not the same, right? And then supporting them with that, so that number one, I know that, hey, they are only advising patients in a way that is going to be in alignment with the care that I'm providing them with, right? And with the right kind of outcomes.
So when you're looking at your business, okay, you've mentioned you started with a book.
Mm-hmm.
You started talking to people, coaching them on how to deal with it.
Yes.
Segue, and you have a supplement line.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes I like to refer to it as the hustle hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of
Hustle hierarchy.
the
I like
bulk
that.
of your in terms of the bulk of your business
Mm-hmm.
income, because you have multiple streams, like every entrepreneur should,
Yes.
right? What would you say is the hierarchy? Where does the bulk of your business income come from? And trickling down, like the top three or four things in the Detox Now's circle.
Yeah. So I would say number one is definitely our supplements and kits. All right. And that's because they're part of a daily regimen that help people to see improved health, right? And then the other thing would be the consulting with companies specifically to help with health advocacy. So that's another thing that I'm very, as a health activist, is helping to close the gap around Black maternal health, education, support, and providing the gap in knowledge and support and services that are available out there. That's something that I also do as a speaker, right? So as a speaker, a health expert focused around health advocacy, because the biggest thing that I find is that we don't know what we don't know, right? And there are companies out there that want to reach people with good information, but they don't know how to reach the people, and they also need some direction on how to do that, right? So those two are the top two, and then out after that, the third thing would be one-on-one coaching, and the one-on-one coaching for me. So we have not just one-on-one coaching. I'm going to say coaching. We have two different levels. We have coaching that is free to our support to support people on their journey, right, through the company. And then there's private coaching with me, right, which is for people who are like, you know what, I need handholding on this journey specifically because I have a lot of, whether it's trauma I'm trying to process through in terms of my health journey, right? I have, and this is not to replace a therapist. This is in addition to them having a therapist, because I'm not a licensed therapist. I specifically help coach them on their journey to making the lifestyle changes that help them prioritize themselves. That's the best way to say it. Prioritize themselves to achieve the goals that they say, the vision that they have for their lives. Okay. So I would say those are the top three.
And like we've said, this is your passion. You live in it. You're
Mhm.
dealing with the information that you figure out, the supplements that you figure out help you survive
Mhm.
literally
Mhm.
every day. A very grueling schedule between
Yes.
being a mom, a wife,
Listen,
a business owner.
you see these things?
And
These are in my pockets all the time. These supplements
oh my gosh.
in my
And
pockets all
so,
the
okay,
time.
so what I want to know is, when you've got the
Mhm.
supplements, you've got them in your pocket, you've got the business coaching is actually very interesting because that's a larger scale ROI,
Mhm.
right? The same hour,
Mhm.
uh, You get paid much more than that hour one-on-one, though all of them are aggregate important to
Yes.
you as a human and the business as a whole.
Yes.
How long did it take for the wheels to get in motion and for your business to turn a profit? Like, how long did it take for you to say, you know what, this can remain an actual business and not just a personal interest?
That's so, in 2017, we appeared on The Breakfast Club, and that really was a game changer, right? I would say that year, I would say, how there's a BC in the timeline before Christ, where this before Breakfast
Yeah,
Club was
yeah.
our timeline. And it totally shifted everything because it really put us on a larger platform to reach more people. And I think, that was 7 years ago, and that was a huge shift because what I realized was that at that point we've been having success. I mean, I one of my clients at that time had eliminated 50 fibroids naturally on our program, right? Through lifestyle changes, 50, 50, not 15, 50. MRI documented, same hospital and did the testing and everything. So we knew it was working, but understand that the medical system that we live in, it really is a sick, we call it sick care instead of health care, because it really is focused on, unfortunately, on, you know, intervention when you are sick, right? Meaning, yes, it's needed. Let me be clear. It's needed because if you are, I had a brain aneurysm 2020. I don't want to be sitting around somebody giving me some burdock root or some herbs. I need you to take me to the hospital. And I had a craniotomy, okay, because that's what was needed to keep me alive. So it is needed. However, there's also the education around what you can do every day to take control of your health. And unfortunately, that which has the greater impact on your health is not taught on a regular basis on large platforms, right? So what I say is the healthcare system has the megaphone that is basically teaching you how to manage sickness versus how to proactively actually pursue and achieve wellness, right? And it's a
Uh,
it's a
you
business.
go, well, and so you're in the AD phase of this, right? And also, again, so much of what we do as mothers, this is a flexible situation. Being a now that you're a mother, now that you're a mother, you are a mother of a very active 12-year-old. Like you have a you that's
A
a
working actor,
you're doing it.
yes, as you
You're
know.
a working actor, and
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why I can't get it together half the time because I'm up here dealing with these kids. In a way, I laugh. This is a great way for you to be able to take care of yourself and your needs and your kids because you're like it's a business. Like,
Absolutely.
but specifically, how has motherhood shaped the trajectory of your business? Because in 2017, she was younger. She wasn't working, so when you simultaneously, your business is taking off
Mm-hmm.
and your daughter's career is taking off. And don't forget, you got an entrepreneurial husband too. There's a lot going on in
Yeah,
this
a lot.
household. How do you do it? What is your advice? How do you make it? With your with
I'm
your
still
three
figuring
feet
that out.
of small intestine, like, and then truly,
No,
it's really hard
no, it is.
to do everything, to have a business, to be a mom. That's why we're here, mompreneurs. But at the same time, there's some parts of this that make it easier
Absolutely.
because you can have a flexible
Flexibility.
schedule.
So key is always remembering, being flexible to remember and focus on what is the most critical priority at the time, while also planning for the things that are important so that they don't become crises, right? So let me unpack that a little bit. Um, Mention about the one-on-one coaching. One-on-one coaching can be extremely lucrative, but guess what? I have a very small focus on it because it requires a lot of one-on-one interaction, which takes a lot more time and energy, right? So it's a lot more high level specific cases, right? Whereas consulting, I speak to many at one time. I'm able to do, whether it's media appearances and I'm reaching many more people, boom, right? So what I have to do is say, okay, you know what? Balance. There's one of me. What can, obviously, number one is making sure you have the right team, right? And that's really important. Like I have a marketing team that is a whole outsourced team. I finally, about 2 years ago, I said, okay, raising my hand, it's beyond me now. I've got to do something else because I was the one running all the marketing at that time, right?
Oh my God. Wait, that's very key. That's a big step. When did you grow the team? When did you say, I gotta let go of some of this profit so I can survive and
Yeah,
grow.
absolutely. That was definitely, it was 2 years ago. This is my second year. I hired a, what we call outsourced CMO, right? I outsourced my chief marketing officer. I hired a team. They literally developed the marketing, with my oversight and all of that. And I was like, okay, somebody else needs to be running this, right? Because I can't do all of that and everything in front of me. And I had to get to the point where I said, okay, it's you have to be at the point where the business can handle it, right? The business can actually handle, all right, i I need to make, I have, it's a stretch at first, but it's also, it has, there's more return, there's ROI that makes it worthy, makes it a valuable next step. And I had to be at least, obviously I had to be at least at six figures, more than, high six figures in terms of revenue, in order to even consider that, right? And at that point I said, this is a breaking point for you right now. You are going to drown if you don't. Right? That's the other thing, was I was doing all the coaching. So before this, about in 2019, so what were about 5 years ago, I was at the point where I was doing all the coaching, right, before this. And I was coaching groups and individuals, and it was very, very rewarding, because I'm seeing all these life changes. Oh my God, women are literally taking back their lives. They are, no longer living in pain. They are reversing high blood pressure and cholesterol. This is the other thing, is we started seeing results outside of just not just, but reproductive health. It was affecting overall health, quality of life. And then that affects your ability to be successful in business, successful in relationships, right? Successful in life overall. But I was at the point where I was like, okay, but now I'm burning out because it's growing and I am trying to do it all. And I had to say, you know what? I need coaches to work under me that now can do that, so that I can focus on growing the company. And that was hard. It was a moment, you know what I mean? Because, and guess what caused me to have to do it? I fell down the stairs and broke my wrist.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can't do it now. I guess this is the time for me to put it in action.
So you just keep turning lemons into lemonade, which is really interesting. Every time something bad happens to you, you're just like, I'm gonna be okay, which is great. I mean, that's a very powerful way to live. And so with that, a lot of people listening,
Mhm,
something bad has happened. Something
mhm.
bad has happened to all of us.
Yep.
It's funny, that's also the impetus for a lot of my work, where
Mhm,
some kind of slight or poor feeling or
mhm,
negative body image
mhm.
lends me
Yeah.
to realize I'm not alone in this. So
That's
what
right.
is your advice to people listening, who something is in their life that takes up a lot of their oxygen, a lot of their energy, who would like to be, someone who turns that into something that helps others and their families?
Hmm. So something, I think it is Mahatma Gandhi that said that. She said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And I believe, my personal mentor and spiritual father was Dr. Miles Monroe, and he says your area of passion is your greatest area of vulnerability. Okay, so the area that you are most affected in life, it's usually because you are a solution. And embrace that there is something there that you have to bring to the world and nobody else, that is going to touch so many beyond you. So I know it's tough. Believe me, I know it's tough. But your what you're going through and how you will navigate it will be the solution that touches so many.
Okay, you've had a lot of success. You're in the AD phase of your business, but is there some time where you're just like things didn't go too well? This could have been like a mom fail.
Hmm. So my mom fail was actually something before I was a mom. Okay. It was early on in life. I confused being fired from the job that I was so passionate about, as an indicator, excuse me, of my self-worth. Okay. And what I learned after that was that, number one, the reason I lost that job was, it was actually a leadership failure. It had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the leadership, the person who was in leadership. But what the ramifications of it for many years for me was that I allowed my success to determine my self-worth. And I feel like so many of us feel, you know, think that way because success, which could be seen as validation and approval from others, typically will feed into our self view and our self perspective and how we value ourselves. And I was so passionate about the work that I was doing, and I equaled it to my value, my own personal value. And what that ended up doing is I went into a job after that where I allowed myself to be in a toxic environment just to stay in the kind of work in the industry that I wanted to be in. And it took years to unravel that to where I could become the kind of mother who's able to teach my daughter that your self-worth has nothing to do with your performance, how you do, how people like you, and how you perform. It's really important because, especially, I had no idea that she would be the kind of child that she is, who is a performer. But that's even more vitally important for her to understand that your self worth is just because of who you came to this planet as. It's who you are, and no matter what you do and how people see you and how they receive you or not, you are still valuable of all the love in the world because you were born. That's your birthright, the valuable person that you are. So that for me was a huge lesson that it took years to learn that and for it to actually manifest in my business. And the connection there in the business is that if you don't understand your self-worth is not equivalent to um, people value being approving you and validating you, you will allow yourself to be taken advantage of by business partners, by clients, by possible vendors, because you will be chasing validation versus manifesting who you are.
I love that. It's like it's so funny. Like failure is the way up. You can't get there with some fails, and so that's
Right.
a good life lesson. You mentioned manifestation, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a wonderful segue to my favorite segment. I ask all of my guests a mompreneur's manifestation, where what you hope is coming next, what you're trying to get off the ground, on how we listeners and watchers can help to manifest success in this endeavor for you.
So the manifestation that I'm kind of like, nurturing is doing more health advocacy on media platforms that are national media platforms. And I actually reached out to this producer because I've literally been like, working with producers who I'm like, okay, this is the segment, shaping the entire segment. I said, listen, you just need to make me your health correspondent because I need to be telling these stories, connecting you with the right people so that the right stories for Black and Brown people are being put out there, right? Especially women. And that's the big thing. And for me, that I feel is going to allow us that megaphone to reach more people with the information that can help empower them to take control of their lives. And then the second part is for my baby girl, to just continue growing the way she is, but in a way where in this industry, her mental health, her self awareness, and her value of herself is just so strong and beautiful, because it is a hard industry and she's doing great. But you and I know like how much that attacks you as a person. And I just want to see her thrive, as the beautiful person that she is, no matter what. And she's doing great, but I just know, so I just want to see that continue to manifest.
I love those manifestations. And I think the first, Coach Jessie gonna get her segment.
Oh, baby.
But for the second regarding our kids, girl, life is hard. I
Mm,
think one of the great things about the children being in the industry
yeah.
with protective psycho parents like
Yes.
us, is the fact that these conversations happen naturally and
Yes.
gradually
Yes.
and in a professional environment versus personal.
Mhm.
Nothing's better than being able to tell my daughter, that these streets are rough. People gonna say stuff to you, but it's nothing personal. It's business, and
Right.
you can't take it personally.
Yeah.
And you got to take what you want and leave it behind. Versus, so it's easier to do that with like an audition you don't get versus a clique that you're not invited to.
Yeah.
And when I tell you that the work stuff has helped with the click stuff,
Yeah.
changed the game.
Yeah.
So I know baby's homeschooling right now because she's on Broadway,
Yeah.
but when she goes back to
Oh, the
the
click
school
stuff.
streets,
It's been the school streets.
that's a
Remember, it was
that's a
before. This happened to be in between the other work, so I get it.
yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But okay,
Yes.
all right, Gessie Thompson, aka Coach Gessie, you got to tell us where everyone can find you and learn more about the work that you do.
Absolutely. I welcome you to please become a part of our community by number one, catching me in these IG streets at Coach Gessie. I'm Coach Gessie on all platforms. And definitely, come to the detoxnow.com, and you don't know what's going on in your body. You want some direction, take our free quiz. We are here to let you know you are not alone. And you know what? Abundant and vibrant health, that's your birthright. Let's get it.
I love it. All right, Coach Gessie with a G,
With a
not a
J.
J.
Yes.
All right, you heard it, everyone. And thank you all for listening and watching Mompreneurs. As a reminder, a brand new episode will go live each Monday on Urban One Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit urban1podcasts.com to learn more. That's urban1podcasts.com. Mompreneurs is brought to you by the Urban One Podcast Network and MadameNoire. Created, produced, and hosted by me, Nancy Wren. Executive produced by Sarita Wesley, Allison McGovna, and Tanya Hoffler-Moore. Produced and edited by Jiminique Miller.